should have gotten it over Monday. They forgot to put the paperwork signed before.
All right. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good to see a room full. Welcome to anybody that, I don't think anybody's online yet. Let me see. Oh, we got a couple of people online. For those of you who are online, we apologize for getting started a little late. We had a little technical difficulty, but anyway. All right, everybody doing okay? Okay. Well, anybody know of any birthdays going on today?
I had a passport customer today and say his birthday was today.
They matter.
He did.
My grandson, Julian.
Oh, Julian's birthday. Okay, well, yay. All right. 15 years old. Doesn't seem possible. Well, I've got a few birthdays that I know of. Would y'all like to hear them?
Yes.
It doesn't matter because I'm gonna say them anyway. So.
He said, no, you do it anyway.
Yeah, I would. So on this date, so you can tell Julian she shares a few birthdays. There's not a lot going on today. I'm telling you, just not a lot. But on this date in 1864, George Washington Carver was born in Missouri, died in 1943. So, okay, a few musicians, and like y'all know my bent toward music. So it's not AC/DC, but no. 1943 on this date, Jim Croce was born. Anybody know what he sang? Bad Leroy Brown. You know?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he was born in Philadelphia. He died in 1973, so he was only 30 when he died. Also on this date in 1945, happy birthday to Rod Stewart. So he's 79. He's always looked old to me. I mean, hard living. But anyway, he was born in London, 1949. Some of you have heard of George Foreman. Y'all either ate off of his grill or else you watched him get his behind kicked by Muhammad Ali. That was nice. But then he made a comeback, 20 years later. It was really was remarkable. But and then speaking of rockers, 1953, ladies don't want to leave you out, Pat Benatar. Although I found out Pat Benatar's last name, I don't know if I can pronounce this correctly. Hold on. Because she was born in Brooklyn. So I don't know where her parents are from, but it was not a typical American name. Let's see. Andre Zajewski was her real last name. So anyway. Some of y'all know who Pat Benatar is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Some of y'all are looking at me like I got three eyes, but anyway. So that's all the birthdays I got. A few deaths on this date. Some of you will appreciate 1862. Samuel Colt died. You may be wondering who that is, but when I tell you he was an American arms manufacturer, you might know who he is. Some of y'all carry around his product, but so can you guess? Being an arms manufacturer and dealer, can you guess how he died? No, he had gout, but I thought it was funny. But anyway, but he died. He was only 47 when he died. I guess maybe connected to that, 1917, William Cody died. You may not know who that is, but until I tell you his name is Buffalo Bill. He was age 70 when he died. 2002, W.A. Criswell died. And even if you don't know who that is, you are deeply influenced by him by virtue of the fact that you're here tonight. He was the longtime pastor, over 50 years of probably the flagship church in its heyday, First Baptist of Dallas. And he's the one who really put great use to having a strong deacon body that basically ran the church. They really probably worked more like an elder body than a deacon body, but whatever. But anyway, he was very, very strong pastor. Took us through the conservative resurgence, which was necessary, and all those kind of things. Going back to rock roots, I'm sorry, y'all. It just keeps coming up, and I found it interesting. 2016 on this date, David Bowie died. He died of cancer at age 69. I don't think I even remember that he died. And then somebody very much less known is Jeff Beck. He died just last year. He was part of the Yardbirds with, who was it in the mid-'60s? Eric Clapton. But he had bacterial meningitis, died at 78. And then just two things that I got on this date that I thought you might be interested in. On this date in 49 BC, Julius Caesar crosses the Rubicon. Rubicon is more than just the name of a Jeep model. He crosses the Rubicon, and the problem with that is that he defied the Roman Senate, and it began a civil war that ushered him into power, where he became a dictator for life, and led him up to just before the time that Jesus was born. So he's the one that really gave the Roman Empire its strength. So anyway, and it all happened, I guess, sort of began with this benchmark event in 49 BC. And then 1911, I just thought it was kind of interesting. The first photograph in the United States that was taken from an airplane took place on this date. And it was flying over San Diego, took a picture. So anyway, there you have it. That's on this date.
Rick James was born today.
Rick James? I didn't see.
James.
What?
Frank.
Oh, I thought you said Rick James. I was like, really? How did I miss Rick James being born on this date?
Frank James was
Frank James. No, I don't guess I do.
Jesse James's brother.
Oh, Jesse James. Okay, all right. Jesse James's brother was born on this date.
And
Very
the guy
good.
who played the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz, Ray Bolger.
Okay, the guy who played Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz. Okay. See, there's more than what y'all have a wealth of knowledge that I don't have. So. Or maybe it's just that y'all have different interests and things catch your mind, your attention more than it does mine.
I had
So.
Elizabeth today.
You what?
I had Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. She's going to give you the trivials. Okay. All right. Well, you guys, open up your Bibles, if you will. So Revelation chapter 4. Here's my Revelation chapter 4, y'all. Just falling out of my Bible. Who wants to help me along with that? Oh, goodness. And I've had the hardest time. I've got so many notes in my Bible, and they run like all the way over to the edge. Well, the edge is all worn out, and my eyes are getting worse. So it's really been an interesting study day today. But anyway, we were marching through our study of the book of Revelation. I talked with somebody Sunday, and they made reference to this study, and I surprised them by telling them that because they thought we were at the end of the study. We're really mostly at the beginning, but we spent 3 or 4 weeks, I don't really remember, on chapter 1, and then we spent 1 week, 30 minutes on chapters 2 and 3. But that's because we studied this a while back, and so we're not gonna repeat that study. But that was the churches of Revelation. So we basically did kind of an overview, introduction, if you will, whatever you want to refer to it as. So we have made it through the first 3 chapters in a pretty short amount of time. And the other night when it was torrential downpour, was that just last night? So I'm riding down the road. I'm riding down White Bluff in my cube, whatever, and I'm cruising. I'm doing fine. It's raining, no big deal. But there are 2 parts to White Bluff that, honestly, it's a 2-lane road, and one of the I guess it's 4-lane, 2 lane going one way, and one complete lane is completely covered in these sections with a water puddle. So I'm riding down the road and I'm making good time, and I hit those puddles, and whoosh, water's going everywhere. It's great, but the car comes to zzz, going really slow. That's what's about to happen. We have gone through fast. We've made good time. Now we're slowing down, people. But we're slowing down because you asked me to. All right? So, if you don't like it at home, blame the people who are in here. It's their fault, because that's what they asked for. But anyway, have you? I can also liken it to, have you ever? Anybody ever watched soap operas? Don't lie.
Yes.
Okay. The stories. Okay. Which one did you watch a long time ago? Okay.
Young and the Restless.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. How long has it been since y'all watched? How many?
Years.
30?
Probably
seriously, if you turn it back on, it will have the same people and the same stories, okay? After that much time. So, here's the thing. If you don't like it in detail, skip a few weeks. When you come back, we'll be right where you left off, okay? Right where you left off. So, anyway, no, it's not going to go that slow. We're not going to go to snail's pace, but yeah, there are just, now we're about to enter into some things that are going to raise questions. And so I can breeze through them if I wanted to, but then you'd back up and you'd be like, well, hold on, but what did that mean? And so I might as well go ahead and answer those questions from the get-go. In fact, just for fun's sake, let's read the first 4.5 verses of Revelation chapter 4. It goes something like this, and again, this is the New American Standard Version. Yours might read a little bit different, and that's fine. You can be wrong. I'm just kidding. It would just be a little bit different. That's all. After these things, I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I had heard, like the sound of a trumpet speaking with me, said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after these things." Immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was standing in heaven, and one sitting on the throne. And he who was sitting was like a jasper stone and a sardius in appearance. And there was a rainbow around the throne like an emerald in appearance. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and upon the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white garments, and golden crowns on their heads. Out from the throne come flashes of lightning and sounds and peals of thunder. Now, I'm not sure that we're going to make it through all those, but here is the beginning of a vision that John has. Now, we live in a day and age that is fascinated, like preoccupied with the afterlife. And like even people who aren't people of faith are drawn to these things because there's movies made about it and there are books that are written and people have visions and experiences which, by the way, I find to be very uncredible when compared to what we have in the Bible. I'm not saying every one of them is. I'm not going to diss anybody, but just as in mass, it's just not kosher with what we find in the Bible. There are books, there are songs, there's these documentaries, all this stuff. We are fascinated with the afterlife. And here we have a picture of what it's going to be like. The Bible itself records specifically 2 instances of people who went to heaven and talk about it. One is Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Can anybody remember what Paul said about heaven in 2 Corinthians chapter 12? Anyone? I'm so glad nobody answered because you'd have been wrong. And I don't want to call anybody out. It was a trick question. He was told to not write down anything. He went to heaven, he went to the third heaven, and he said not to say anything. So he didn't, other than he went there. 2 Corinthians chapter 12.
Okay, and what's the third heaven?
Okay, good question. There's a third heaven. Okay, that's what Paul talks about is the third heaven, and that's really what this is referring to, even though it doesn't use that phrase. The first heaven is the sky. When you look up into the heavens or whatever, is the sky. Second heaven is interstellar space. Third heaven is heaven. What we talk about when we say heaven.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. So he's ushered in the third heaven, but not allowed to write about it. The Bible talks about heaven. There are approximately 500 verses that talk about heaven. Paul does talk about it in some passages, and Ezekiel talks about it some, but we are going to learn the most. Like if you are fascinated by this subject, this chapters 4 and 5 are where you go. We learn more information, more detailed information, and more specific information about heaven in chapters 4 and 5 than we do anywhere else in the Bible. So if you ever want to, listen, if you ever do a study about heaven and they don't go to Revelation chapters 4 and 5, you need to throw that study out. Because this is where it comes from. This is the main text. And everything else really should be supplementary. So I mention that because, well, and then the other thing that as we're looking at these chapters, we need to understand that this, what we're about to discuss, is not so much about the beauty of heaven. That's going to come in Revelation chapters 21 and 22. It's going to talk about all the great, beautiful things that we talk about. But this is a precursor to judgment. This is not something to, ooh and ah, be fascinated with. No. This is something that should, if you got an Apple phone and you're doing the text and you're doing emoji with the big eyes, like, that's what this should be. Because we are about to be awed, but not in a pleasant way. It's like, oh my goodness, this is the God that's about to do what's about to happen. So we are going to get to a certain degree because of our curiosity. We're going to in a certain degree get bogged down in some details. Okay? Because there are questions like, what's the third heaven? Good questions. We're going to get bogged down in some details. So let us not overlook the fact that we are talking about heaven, detailed. We're talking about the throne. The throne is mentioned 11 times in chapter 4 alone. And we are talking about the precursor to judgment. That's the big picture in chapters 4 and 5. Okay? So, like, even I might get so bogged down in the details, I forget to draw us back to that. But I'll do my best to keep reminding to where you're like, shut up, we got it. Okay? So, anyway. All right. He says, so after these things, in verse 1, he ends the verse with after these things. So we're talking about after these things. It's mentioned twice. Now, what I hope will happen, because I keep talking about it so much in the Route 66 study, I talked about it in the introduction to this study. I talked about it as we were going through it. I mentioned it last week, and that is chapter 1 and verse 19. Look at this. It all comes together, man. I just love the unity of the Bible. It's just fascinating to me. 19, I said all along, this is the outline for the book. Chapter 1, verse 19 says, therefore write the things which you have seen, chapter 1, the things which are, from John's viewpoint, as chapters 2 and 3, and the things which will take place when? After these things. So now he starts chapter 4 with the third part of the outline, after these things. And he does so twice. Now, the first after these things is, how's the best way to, the first after these things that he mentions is John's chronology, John's personal experience. After writing about what I had seen and what was going on with the churches, in my own personal experience, here's what happened to me. Okay? The second after these things is God's chronology. It's him saying the end times is about to take place. And when you want to talk about the end times, poke your head up because I'm about to tell you about the end times. And it says, notice that a door is standing open in heaven. A voice comes to him, and it doesn't say who it is. But there's a clue. It says, like the sound of a trumpet speaking with me. Now, just looking at that verse, visually looking at the verse, can you make a guess as to who it is? Who this voice is? Because it doesn't say. Here's the thing. Here's what I find interesting. And I don't have a good answer to this question. If it's a question for you, it's a question for me. If you have a red letter edition, this is in black and white, right? But our clue to this is, I'm sorry, my pages are falling apart. The clue to this is back in chapter 1 and in verse 10. Remember this, that John said, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me a loud voice like the sound of a trumpet saying. And suddenly you have words, and they are in red. Now, we know that this is Jesus, not because it's written in red, okay? I mean, you do realize that the original scripture was not written in red, right? But the context, and we looked at that, however many weeks ago, we looked at that to see that it was the Lord Jesus. Well, now it's the same voice. It's the same voice that sounds like a trumpet. And the reason it sounds like a trumpet is because it's talking about that it's authoritative, it's commanding, it's a commanding voice. That's the idea behind a trumpet. If you've ever gone and watched a marching band, I mean, there are a lot of things going on, but the trumpet's what's carrying the band, right? I'm sorry if you didn't play trumpet in the band. I don't mean to, down what you did. What you did was important. But it just like the melody carries a harmony, So the trumpet is commanding, it's authoritative. This is Jesus. So Jesus says, come up here and I'll show you what must take place after these things. And so when he says that, immediately John was in the Spirit. And behold, a throne was standing in heaven. Two big words there. Number one, I've already mentioned. Throne. It is the theme of the chapter. We are now at the very throne of God. This should get your attention, and really, it would be cool. It would be cool. I'm not pretending that I'm the most fascinating teacher, and I'm going to bring all this stuff out that just blow your mind or whatever. But it'd be really cool if after we go through chapter 4 and chapter 5, if when every single time you go to God in prayer, and we say, here's what we say. We say, I'm going to go to the throne room of God when we pray. True. That in your mind, you picture this. That's the coolest thing. That we get to insert ourselves. And again, I know that unless you've studied this and you know what's coming really well, because usually people start in chapter 6. That's when their interest gets piqued because you got the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And, crazy stuff starts happening. But we get to insert ourselves into this scenario. I mean, that's just like crazy. It's just crazy. So the throne, and of course that's referring to his rule and his sovereignty. And so this will be a good thing, I think, for all of us to remember. We are not in heaven yet. And there's going to be a lot of bad stuff that's about to take place. I mean, a lot of bad stuff. And the reminder from the outset of this vision, and this is the outset of the end vision, is that God is still in control. That it's going to be chaotic, and there's going to be a lot of horrible things that are going to take place, but God has not lost control, not one bit. He's got a plan behind all of it. And so certainly for us in this life and in this time period when things are bad, or can get so, that God has not lost his control at all. He is totally in control. And it says that he was standing. Standing means to be fixed and to be permanent. He was standing in heaven and one sitting on the throne. And it's kind of interesting that, that idea that kind of the two different ideas of standing and sitting kind of contrasting one another. But that's what he's talking about. Now, when you, I was talking with somebody the other day and they were talking about how they liked detective shows and those kind of things. And of course, my mind, when I think of detective shows, my favorite has always been for, oh my goodness, going on almost 30 years now, over 25, is Law and Order. Y'all like Law and Order? The original, yeah. That's because she's a godly lady. That's why. Yes. So you got the first half where they're like catching the bad guy. Second half is they're putting him on trial. And, if you ever watched, Judge Judy or whatever those shows are, I don't watch those, but You know, whenever they walk in, everybody's got to stand up, and the judge comes in and sits behind the desk. So the whole idea here is you've got a guy, a being. I don't want to say a guy. That's too disrespectful. You have a being who is ruling, who is sovereign, and now he is sitting behind his throne, which means that judgment is about to take place. It is about to unfold, and he's going to mention some things that are really, really kind of strange to us. Now, here's where some weird stuff starts taking place. He who was sitting was like a jasper stone and a sardius in appearance. A jasper stone and a sardius. Now, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, he was like this. Not the throne, but he was like this. So what does that mean? This is where we get into some things where there is a lot of symbolism that takes place. It was written for Jews, and Jews would have an understanding as to what he was talking about. There are some things that would speak to them, that would appeal to them, that would be meaningful to them. Like, today we learned that Nick Saban is about to retire. Well, that's more than just a fact. That speaks to Georgia fans that go, whew, because man, he really kicked our behind for many years, didn't he? Except for one time, right? So this here is not just some fact that he's thrown out there. It speaks a language to the original hearers. Now, it is a very cool thing too that he's telling them. Several things. So, first of all, the jasper and the sardius. Jasper, what now?
Is that significant? Like jasper is green, isn't it?
Okay, so here's the thing. It's a good question.
The other one's red.
Yeah, very good. All right. Green we're coming to. Jasper, though, when you skip over to, and by the way, if you're watching online, the question was, is jasper, what's it referring to? Is that green? And then the next one is red and those kind of things. So the jasper here, if you look at chapter 21 of the book of Revelation, it talks about clear as jasper. So the clarity here, he's probably talking about a diamond in our minds. We would understand it to be a diamond. And then the sardius, yes, it was like a ruby red color. Now, here's the cool thing about that. There's several cool things about this. First of all, this was the first in a high priest's, according to the book of Exodus, the high priest would wear a breastplate, and it would have the 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel. The first stone was a jasper. The last stone was a sardius. He is the first and the last. Now, the first stone, being the jasper, represented Reuben. Reuben being the firstborn, and Benjamin was the lastborn, and the sardius represented, in this breastplate, the sardius represented Benjamin and the tribe of Benjamin. And so the second level of this meaning behind him being jasper and sardius is that he is still in covenant with the nation of Israel. The covenant was made through the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 sons of Jacob, and these stones represented from encompassing the entire nation. He is still in covenant relationship with them. It has not been lost. And think about it again, he is preparing them for what is about to take place, the terrible judgment that's going to happen, and the terrible things that will happen to the Jewish people in the tribulation. And he's saying, listen, my covenant with you has not been broken. I have not forsaken you. In fact, my platform that I'm going to work through the world is now you again. So we're back to the Old Testament, sort of, with the Messiah having come. So not in chronology, but in his work in the world. But then it doesn't just stop there. The name Reuben. represented the firstborn, represented by the jasper stone. It means behold a son. Benjamin, the lastborn, represented by the sardius, means son of my right hand. This is a depiction of the Son of God sitting at the right hand of the Father. So, man, you got so many levels to this thing. And so again, these things don't like sink into our Jewish mind, especially 2,000 years removed from this kind of talk. But it certainly would have spoken to the original audience. Okay, and so I'm sitting I'm in the Spirit. There's a throne, and he who was sitting on that throne is Jesus Christ. And it says there was a rainbow around the throne, like an emerald in appearance. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting, this idea of a rainbow, because, of course, the rainbow is it's not what it's made out to be today, right? Rainbow is a reminder of the promise of God. That's what it is. It's been hijacked, and we shouldn't have any problem taking it back. But it's a promise of God that he's not going to destroy the earth with a flood. But it doesn't mean he's not going to destroy the earth. He's about to come in and lay waste. That's what he's going to do. And so I just thought that was kind of an interesting connection. I don't know if that's the connection that was trying to be made here by John, but I thought it was an interesting connection. But I do want you to turn, if you will, in your Bibles back to Ezekiel chapter 1, because it is reminiscent of another description that we have of heaven. Ezekiel chapter 1, beginning in verse 26. Okay. Y'all there? At least that time? Okay. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 26 through the end of the chapter. So it's just 3 verses. Says, now above the expanse that was over their heads was something resembling a throne, like lapis lazuli in appearance. I'm not 100% sure as to what that is, to be honest. And on that which resembled a throne, high up was a figure, check this out, with the appearance of a man. I've got a picture of the throne in heaven, and there's somebody like a man on that throne. Who do you think that was? The God-man, the eternal God-man. When we say that God was the same yesterday, today, and forever, he is eternally the God-man. Then I noticed from the appearance of his loins and upwards something like glowing metal that looked like fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his loins and downward I saw something like fire, and there was a radiance around him. So you can imagine these guys probably the same way that we would be, even in our modern day. When you see something and you don't even have a clue as to what you're looking at, you're just doing the best that you can to explain what you're seeing. Like it's blowing you away. Like I'm trying to think of the largest mountain that I've ever been to. I just love going to the mountains, and I look at the mountains and I'm like, I don't even know how to pass this along. I don't even know how to describe this in ways that somebody else will understand. Have you ever seen a sunset that was the most awesome thing that you've ever seen? How do you put that into words?
Even pictures don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. You can take your phone out and click, and I've done it 100 times. I show it to somebody, and I'm like, but this doesn't do it justice, you know? They're struggling here. I don't know what to say. How do I say this? As the appearance of the rainbow, there it is again, as the appearance of the rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. There's the key word, I think. The radiance of the glory of God. I'm doing my best to describe to you how magnificent the sight of God is. I'm doing the best I can, but it's just not justice. I took a picture with my iPhone or whatever the other phone is that's supposed to have the best picture or whatever. It's not helping. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face and heard a voice speaking. That's what happens. I mean, we get there and we're going to see God. And I just tell you right now, I'm running out of time. We can't even make it through verse 3. My word. I'll try not to go this low. I don't know. Maybe I won't try. We'll see. We'll see. But this is the problem that I have. And I know there's sweet stories and all that kind of stuff. And so y'all don't get too mad at me. But when people come back with these stories that they went to heaven and, you know, they saw this stuff and they saw their loved one and, you know, they had a discussion with them and they learned all kind of things about stuff that went on earth and all that kind of stuff. And I hear all that. And when you compare it to the Bible, they weren't blown away with seeing Moses and Aaron and David and all that kind of stuff. They were blown away by God. And they, in ways that they could not even describe.
Because our minds can't conceive that.
Exactly. It can't even begin to grasp it. And so when people come back with these simplistic stories that are, you know, heartwarming and all that kind of stuff, and you know, they give us details that, oh wow, you kind of blow us away or whatever, I don't buy it. Because heaven is all about a person. It's all about a person. That's what makes the wonder of it all. So, anyway, you people, y'all made me go late. It's y'all's fault somehow. It can't be mine. So, okay, questions though. I probably should stop a lot sooner so that you can ask questions and not feel like you're being rushed. So, what questions do you have?
A quick peek, who are on the other 24 thrones?
Quick peek. That is a topic of discussion that I was hoping to get to tonight. Some people say it's angels. It's not angels, and I got good proof as to why it's not angels. But some people will disagree with me, but I believe it is the representatives, and I don't know exactly who, but it's the representatives of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 disciples. So,
I kind of was thinking that in my mind.
yeah.
That made sense with the number.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. But there are a lot of people who disagree. Some people will say that it's angels, and then other people will say they'll smarter people than I, and they've got reasons that they don't think that's who that is. That's just representative of the church, period, at large. But that just wouldn't make sense, a whole lot of sense to me. So, anyway, for a few different reasons. But so yeah, that's what I think it is. Any other questions for tonight? Okay. I'll try to go faster next week and maybe not talk so much. I said I'll try. I didn't say I would. I'll try. I thought I could at least get through 4.5. But hey, what does that mean? Let's see, 75. That's like, I got 65% done that I planned or something like that. 65. All right. What prayer requests you got? Even if you're watching online, if you got any prayer requests, you can put those in the comment section. And go ahead and start doing that, because I know it'll take you a few seconds to type it in, and it'll take a few more seconds for it to get to us. Probably 15 to 20 second lag time. So go ahead and start doing that. I see we got about 6 people watching. Got somebody watching YouTube. Yay. That's always fun, because that's kind of new, a little bit newer for us anyway. All right, what requests y'all have in the room?
Reagan Dillon's family.
Pray for Reagan Dillon, and the family. Her dad died. They're looking at that funeral being 11 o'clock. Well, visitation will be 11, and then the funeral will be at 12. It'll be here. So,
Which day?
what did I say? What did I say?
You just said the time.
You just said the time.
Just come at 11. I just stop arguing. Good night. These people are so picky here. Geez. I want to know every single detail. So, yeah, Saturday 11 and 12. So, Gene had several to pray for Alicia, pray for Richard Powell, who's just on the other side of. I talked with Betty yesterday or day before. She said we feel like we're on the other side of COVID. So, and on top of everything else that he's had, COVID. Carolyn Powers and daughter, Letitia Wessinger. Don Agnew, and she says, and many more, and that's certainly true. Pray for Goodness, why's my mind? Carol Shoup. She's in the hospital. She's got pneumonia and sepsis again. She just had that not too long ago. I think she went in Monday, and she's been ever since. But she is hoping to get out tomorrow. So let's be in prayer for Carol. And of course, you know Jimmy. Jimmy's been sleeping there. He's been there the whole time and all that, except he had to go home to take care of his cat. So, no surprise. So, what else?
Joanne is still on her way back.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, Joanne was supposed to come back this weekend, right? This past weekend. And come back from Uganda. And so, still en route. Anybody else?
You say the funeral's gonna be here?
Yes. Yes, it'll be in the sanctuary. They were, yeah. Okay, that's all that has come through on from outside. That's all that anybody's mentioned on the inside. And so, yeah, let's go to God in prayer. God, somehow, as we read chapter 4, and we just gotten started in chapter 4, we were reminded of your sovereignty and your overlooking all things and being in control and being on the throne. You are royal and you are omniscient. You know everything that's going on, and so it certainly does makes it, I guess, easier. And it's a great reminder as we bring to you the things that we deal with here on this earth that somehow, some way, I don't know how it happens, but we can't name enough prayer requests that would overwhelm you. It kind of boggles my mind when we mention so many names, but it's all right in your mind and in your heart, in your plans. And somehow you're able to make it all work together for good to those who love you. And so, God, we take comfort in that, and I pray that those who are suffering, names that we've mentioned, and even those that we have not, that they would be reminded of that, and that it would be something that would bring them peace and bring them comfort in their time of need. And then, Lord, I pray that they'd be able to give testimony of your goodness in their lives on the other end of it all. God, as we come together on Sunday, help us to worship you in spirit and in truth with our hearts and with our minds. And may it be life transforming for you and for Emmanuel Baptist Church and any other church that might be represented in our service on that day. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you all. Look at that. Hey. Well, almost. Anyway, Mark can't get too mad at me. Okay. Thank you all for watching online too.